Hello and welcome to part 4 of New Shepherd Training. And we're looking at leadership style today and how we go about doing this. We all have different ways of just being us. We're all individual people, and sometimes we say, well, I don't know that I'm much of a leader. And so we tend to focus on ourselves. So in today's training, we're looking at, in this session, we're looking at what is our style and how do we determine our style. So we're going to watch the short video and then we're going to talk about it for a few minutes and look to ourselves a little bit and understand a little more about what our style means and what it means for what kind of leader we'll be. So let's watch the Lausanne Group video about different styles of leadership.
So the Shepherd has inspired me to look at my own leadership style. Sometimes I think, you go through journeys. You can study leadership techniques, and I looked at all the theories in my master dissertation and think, okay, what is out there? But then I realized actually it all comes down to serving the people God has entrusted to me. So I want to be like a good shepherd and being there and knowing which of the ones in the flock are sick, which one need my help today, which one I need to feed. So that really has so shifted a bit in my mind of not just being, in front of them and teaching them, but discipleship means to be out there as a servant.
The example of King David in Psalm 78, 72, we read that he shepherded his people with integrity of heart and with a skillful hand he led them. So integrity of heart and skillful hand. So this is what we see as inseparable two elements of a leader. So leaders of integrity.
I've become very concerned that much of leadership as it's practiced in churches and other Christian organizations is driven by social science, by leadership studies, by how other people have done it. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with all of that, but those things have become the driving force. I've also become very concerned with the idolatries that capture leaders and that keep them from doing and being all that God has in mind for them.
Howard Hendricks said, a leader is a person with a magnet in his heart and a compass in his head. And what does that mean? Someone will say, ooh, those are deep words. So what does it mean? When a leader has a magnet in his heart, it means that he is out there to develop others. Okay? He attracts many people because of his exemplary leadership style. In as much as it is a laissez-faire kind of leadership, he's able to walk along that person and grow that person. That's what a leader is all about. And a compass in his head, he knows which direction. He's not looking at now, he's looking at the future. He's asking, now the leadership style is like this. What happens in the future? How can I help you reach where you want to reach in the future? And he looks at all directions.
We have a multiple leadership model with multiple elders, but one of the things that's been so good and so healthy about that is we make decisions together. And it may be just the five of us who know all the pieces of the puzzle, but we're able to support each other mutually. And there's so much richness in that. And the biblical teaching is so clear on multiple leaders involved in leading the church, leading the early church. And following that example in the ways that you can of surrounding yourself with other people that you can walk that road with is important.
We are all different. We are all unique. So I would suggest, I would advise that we stay who we are. We've been created by God in so many different ways, with so many different gifts and skills, and God's way is unique, is very different for each one of us. And there are ways, many ways in which God can use us or these new emerging young leaders in His kingdom. Some of us will be called maybe for more strategic roles or positions in the kingdom. Some others will stay at the local level, but all these responsibilities are equally important because we are serving the kingdom. There are no more prestigious or less prestigious positions or roles in serving the kingdom.
That my inadequacies have constantly pushed me to Christ. And knowing that I need Him and I need to depend on Him. And if I think, when I start feeling more sure that I can do this, it can be dangerous because I'm not as dependent as I am when I'm feeling those inadequacies. But as I walk in faith and walk stepping ahead, even with those inadequacies, but dependent on Christ, it makes such a difference for all that I do.
I take time to listen to what God is saying. It's actually discernment. So in everything that I do, whether it's in having meetings, whether it's planning in my work, whether it's implementing my projects, whether it's going for a meeting or interacting or networking and external engagement, all that, I first of all discern and ask God, what would you want, what would you do if it was you? Please use me as your vessel to be able to reach out to these people, to be able to exemplify life, the kind of life that you would want me to exemplify and bring out you in whatever I'm doing.
Following the example of Jesus in leadership, He says, as the Father sent me, so I send you. And we have in Jesus an example of leadership. We have in Jesus a style of leadership. We have in Jesus the way He interacted with people. And what I love about Jesus is how He interacted with so many different people in so many different ways. He didn't have a cookie cutter approach. He met each person where they were at individually and listened to them and talked with them. And I think that's a big model for us to follow.
Okay, so having looked at that, let's just talk about some of the things that they brought up there. We tend to focus on us. Again, what kind of leader am I going to be? What is my job as a leader? What are my qualifications? What are my skills? We focus inward very quickly, oftentimes because either we're overconfident, but more likely because we are not confident. And it's really not about us, it's about the ones entrusted to us, is what they said there. It's about the ones who need care and feeding, not about us being, whether we're out front or teaching or whatever. And it can be very easy to very quickly start focusing on ourselves and not focus on the people that we're trying to care for. And leadership is not supposed to be about you, it's supposed to be about the people that we are caring and feeding. So one of the things they mentioned in the video that I really liked was a magnet in the heart and a compass in the head. The magnet being that you're drawing others, and we do this by loving them, just care for them. Just showing an interest in them, just showing that they matter to us, just by taking even just a few minutes of attention to let people know that we care. And that care may not be driven by our personal emotions, it's driven by our calling of God to care for them. And then the compass in the head is helping move them forward to say, how can I help them in their walk with God? What word of encouragement can I give them today? What way can I help them understand God's love for them more and God's calling in their lives? And so we care about them with the magnet in our heart. We draw them in because we care about them. And then we just don't, it's not just caring about them, it's also encouraging them and helping move them forward. One of the other things I talked about there is in our leadership style, because we all have different styles, we want to make decisions together. And that's one thing that's going to be very important as we go forward. It doesn't mean, and when we talk about making decisions together, it doesn't mean that we get together to decide all the day-to-day operational decisions of the organization. One of the things that we have set up here at Beans Corner is day-to-day decisions don't need to be made by a committee When we talk about making decisions, we're talking about the big decisions of moving forward, of where is the direction of the church going? How do we move people forward? And this is the thing that has really needed to be built up in our church and needs to be strengthened, helping each other and help leaders in each other's lives and helping each other grow and make decisions and move forward in the spiritual progress of the church. Again, each of us have been made a different way, and we have to be who God made us. So often we try to fit into a mold, and we try to, maybe people, I've had different younger men over the years who've tried to be me, who've tried to emulate my style, have tried to emulate my gifting, and they can't be me because they're not me, and I can't be someone else. I have to be me, who God made me. And so we're all going to have different roles, and as you step into leadership, as you shepherd and show leadership at Beans Corner, that may look different than other people around you because of your unique gifts and calling. Maybe you're more strategic, and maybe you're going to be one that helps us plot the larger things and works with the rest of us in leadership to say, okay, where do we need to go long term over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years? As we look to the future and say, what are the big things that Beans Corner really needs to focus on, work on, develop, fix, strengthen, correct? And you're more of a strategic thinker, and that is something that God has called you to. Or maybe you are more of a one-on-one person. Maybe you're not even someone who would ever get up and teach a Sunday school class or a big group or ever be interested in speaking on a Sunday morning. But you love or are good at having just a one-on-one conversation, just going out and sitting down over a cup of coffee and just having that one-on-one conversation in an intentional friendship that builds someone else up. And so, whichever way you go with that, maybe you are good at encouraging, as a woman, you're encouraging others that are struggling. There's just so many different ways of who God has made you and how that is necessary in the body of Christ and in our body here at Beans Corner. Now, having said that, one of the other things they bring up in the video we just watched was that inadequacies are real. We have to beware of just depending on our strengths. It's easy to just go with our strengths. That's what I want to do. I want to avoid the areas I'm weak and just focus on where I'm strong. Now, it is true that I should primarily operate within the gifting God has given me. But I need to not avoid my weak areas or pull out because I'm weak in a certain area. Because inadequacy is good, because if you just operate in your strengths, you may operate in your own strength all the time. And in operating in your own strength, now it's not God's work, it's yours. And that is not going to last or have eternal value. So we need to make sure that we aren't just relying on our strengths and relying on what we're good at. And that's the temptation, because again, we don't want to fail. We don't want to seem weak. And so we may just try to stay in our strength. When we are better at staying out of just depending on our strengths, just following ourselves. One of the other things they talked about was listening. We want to discern God's agenda. And this is another reason why we need a plurality of leaders, a plurality of shepherds who come together to pray together, to discuss together, to share different viewpoints and different perspectives and different styles, so that through the group we can listen for God's agenda. If any one person is always setting the agenda, the danger is that the person's agenda becomes the agenda of the ministry, and we don't want that. I don't want my personal agenda to ever be the church's agenda. I want Christ to set the agenda for Beans Corner, and I seek to do that, but it is easier to do when I have other voices and when we are working as a team. And this is another area where we desperately need people like you, where we come together as shepherds and we meet and we pray and we talk about who we've been talking to and who we've met. And I can't get a feel for the whole congregation by myself anymore. There's just too many people. But if we as a group are coming together and talking to other people, we as a group can then know where people are at, and we can begin to share where we sense God is taking the church as a group. Our example, as they said in the video, is Jesus. Jesus interacted with different people in different ways. He didn't just have a cookie cutter approach. And so one of the themes of today's session, is that there is no just this is what it means, and a narrow definition of leadership and a narrow definition of ministry skills and leadership style. Jesus, even though he was only one person and God, but as one person, he varied his style with different people, and he ministered in different ways to different people. And we're going to do that. And so each of us are going to follow Jesus' example and then work together. So I hope that you can, as we continue to work through this, begin to get a feel for a little bit of your style. Know that your style may evolve over time. Mine has. My style has changed as I get older, as I gain more experience, and also, age. My style adapts and changes, and yours may too. And that's okay too. As they said in the video, we need to be who God is. So I hope this is encouraging for you today, and I hope that as you go through these lessons, that you'll consider adding your voice to the rest of the team, joining the team as we work to lead Beans Corner and shepherd Beans Corner. So we'll get ready. Part 5 is next, and I'll see you there. Have a great afternoon, evening,